Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk. Thanks for tuning in and welcome back. On this episode, we have a 1357 replay sent in by Lederklasse. I'm probably saying that wrong, but old Leder is in his AMX 1357F, a Tier 7 French light tank. It's a premium tank. He's in a 5-10 2-tier battle on Proc, which is a great map for a scout tank. He's spawned into the North spawn, and he's actually in a platoon of 3 of these things. Sent this in, wanted me to take a look. He ends up having a pretty good spotting damage game, but let's take a look at how this goes. First thing we'll talk about, since I haven't really, in fact I think this is the first one Leder has sent in for me, we'll talk about initial positioning. Now I don't know if you had voice comms here later. If you did have voice comms with these guys, I would have probably done something different than all 3 of you go up and start surfing the middle ridge. Clearly one of you could do that, and that's an outstanding thing to do. If I was directing this platoon, I'd have sent one up here, up the hill, just to take a look, see what they're doing. I'd have sent one over here to try to post up. There's actually a new bush, which is sort of low. It's not quite up at the top. The magic bush is still there, but there's one a little bit short that's a little bit lower and easier to get into, which can really lock down anything trying to push up and forward on this side, or even just get in some of these bushes or make a dash for the magic bush up there, which is still a dangerous proposition, especially with as many scouts as there are in the game. But I don't think you needed all 3 up here on the ridge. If you didn't have voice comms, sometimes you're just going together. The other possibility here is you were looking to Wolfpack, and if you were able to jump on anything, machine gun it down with 3 AMX 1357s, and that's obviously a valid tactic as well. But you're going to see that we see quite a few guys coming up here on the 5-6 line. And one thing Leder's going to run into, and you have to be willing to adjust to, is what your team is doing. And what his team is doing is stacking up nearly everybody on the 1-2 line, with one lonely IS controlling the 5-6 line, with one of his buddies, the Armageddon or Armafreshern or whatever his name is over there, and one Carnarvon with an AT-15A trundling over to the hill. This ends up being a very strange Prokhovka battle, but we'll see that play out as we go. And he is surfing. I'll say, Leder, you really love that power slide. Holy cow, every turn Leder does is a power slide just about. I don't care for them because it kills off so much momentum. It is good if you need to turn right around. Say you're coming up to the top of the ridge there and you want to spin right around, but I think if you time your turns well enough, you can just expose the top of your turret and your spotting point without worrying too much. See how you did it again right there and really slowed down. 2 in a row is going to bring you nearly to a halt. I wouldn't use it just because it's there. I would use it in the right situation. That is obviously to personal taste. If that's the way you drive and it works for you, there you have it. I'm just saying it's a little bit much. You probably don't need it every time. One thing about the 1357 though that he does have to deal with is its traverse, or its turn radius, is pretty low. Turn rate's good, he's moving pretty fast. His turn radius is not so good. So he's going to dive into this little bowl here. And at first I thought, well, that's not really a great idea, and then I remembered that he hadn't been spotted. He's coming up and over that ridge multiple times behind him, not being spotted, so this was not a bad move to move on into this middle ridge and see what the heck's going on, because it's very strange, right? He's not been lit here. All these guys are stacked up on the 1-2 line. They're sort of creeping forward because nothing's happening. And I imagine Leder's looking at this going, well, I'm not really sure what's happening here. We're about to find out what it is that's happening because it's kind of interesting. The IS has moved back because an E25 went squirting through on the 6-7 line, and now he's up and over looking to take on the artillery. Later, I'd actually gone over there and tried to help take him out. There was no real reason for you to keep on just hanging out right here. You could have just turned around and helped out the IS and the S51 take down that guy. But as it is, you find this E50 or E25, not E50, but E25 sitting up here and punish him with a couple hits. Nice job going on to C to force a reload. E25 ends up dying from the IS, and the IS turns around, so that ends up working out okay for your team. And now Leder is going to get aggressive, and I think this is a pretty good idea here. They punish the E25. There doesn't seem to be much going on. You've got a whole stack of guys with big guns back there. Let's see what happens if we move up forward, see if we can find somebody. Well, there's somebody. There's another somebody. Now look at that scout. That poor scout was right there, and later was able to drive right up on him because he was essentially, for the most part of that, double bush the whole way in. So coming through that double bush line of the trees and staying in those bushes can be very effective on getting quite close to the enemy there. He takes a hit from the SU-101, which hurt quite a bit, and he's got a 34-100 over there sitting on the 5.6 line. Unfortunately, that E-25 lived. Down goes the SU-101, and we've got 2,200 spotting and 600 damage. And now I think you can see what is happening here. We've got the ring around the rosy action going on. His entire team coming down the 1-2 line, their entire team roughly coming up the 9-0 line, having gone over the hill. Now this is why I go back to the beginning where I said if I'd have had voice comms, it would have been really nice if one of you had at least gone up there and just taken a peek, a looky-loo, and give your team a little bit of information there, and then probably have to run away, just knowing that there's only 1 or 2 tanks over there supporting you, but at least you might have given your team a little SA early on. Now let's talk about camera technique here as well. One thing I noticed that you do through this whole thing is you basically look exactly where you're driving. So nearly the whole time you've been driving, it's just been kind of this view with just a little bit right and left. And what I would be doing while I'm driving, I'd be zoomed out more with a Scout. Now I don't have a zoom mod. I use vanilla, so that's the farthest out it goes. And I would, as I drove, would be looking around, especially in the direction I thought the enemy would be, which would be pretty much from down here to about where the 34-100 is. And I'm just looking to see what I can see. Clearly you want to cross-check the mini-map to find out, but I think a picture's worth 1,000 words, and the mini-map's that nice 2D picture, but look at this big 3D picture as I drive. So I'm just going to show you what I'm doing with a camera when I drive. I'm doing this kind of thing. I'm looking, I'm zooming. Sometimes I'm zooming out. I might even look behind me to see what my buddies are doing, who's coming with me, where's the enemy. We'll go back to yours, and it's just pretty much straight away. Now there's a nice side look. That's not bad. Woo! There's another power slide. And very strange. So your team has evened it up just a little bit. There's an IS-2. IS-2 takes some damage. We're up to 2,300. E-25 drives in, takes out the IS-2. You've got some of them camping up on the hill. A couple of them have filtered into the north and are challenging you at your north crossing. There's a 34-100 down here. There's a Suma right next to you. This is a good point right here for you scouts out there. Proximity scouting is a powerful tool, especially when it's on a big ridge like this where you can light them up and not get shot at. Obviously, it can be a negative if you're trying to not be lit up. But finding guys who are hugging that side, all you've got to do is go drive right down at yourself and you'll end up proxy light them. That can give you good SA. It's a good thing to know and use. We're going to come up here. Trying to get a little auto aim on this guy. St. Emil takes a little damage. I have no idea how he didn't see you, but he didn't. There we go. Now we're spotted. Guy's pounding them. I might have actually zoomed on them. I don't know. That the auto aim seemed to be working. The St. Emil's getting pounded. Oh, there goes the M10. I think that's the right decision. Dodge back down. Oh, be careful, man. Very surprised he didn't shoot at you right here. Couple opportunities really for them to take you down, and you dodged one from that 34-100. So I think you stayed there a little longer than you really wanted to, especially since you stopped getting lights. You had a little bit of cover there because of the number of targets they had to shoot at, but once those guys start to go away and you become the one target they have to shoot at, and all of a sudden you've got multiple guns blasting at you. So be very careful with scouts reappearing at the exact same spot over and over, especially in the case like that where you weren't really getting any lights anymore. Artillery goes after you. They're going to spend a pretty good portion of the rest of the game shooting at you. I thought this was a good idea initially to come back and rejoin with the rest of your team, but they have killed basically what's back here. So my question to you right now is, all right, what's the plan? You just keep heading back into the corner, but that's not really where you want to be, I don't think, as a scout, unless you were attempting to get all the way back here and then back over to the 1-2 line without taking kind of that middle road, and that may have been your thought process right there. The question becomes, where are those two E-25s? You know, if they've posted up somewhere near the Sturv in those bushes, that could be trouble. If you'd have come across the middle, they might have had shots. But as it is now, you're working down the 1-2 line. I thought this was a good idea. You really don't want to cross the railway right there. That's just not a great idea. There's nobody over there to support you. You're kind of alone. You're more or less a one-shot to just about everything, minus maybe the E25s are going to take 2 pretty quick succession shots to take you down. Maybe 3 if they low roll, depending on what they roll. All right, so we find one of them. This ends up working out really well for your team. He's actually inbound. He tries to turn. Looks like he did the old power slide. Maybe got tracked along the way. He's still trying to get his stuff together. Maybe just rust some of those shots a little bit there. Depression is a problem with the 1357. You do have to watch that, and down goes the E25. So it's pretty good. We're up to 3,200 spotting and 1,200 damage. That E25 was a good kill. Now we just really would like to find that other one if we can. The Sturv is getting up high on the side of that hill and jumping into bushes, which is a great spot for him. The Chrysler is hanging out in the bushes, which is good, and the Panther is kind of driving around supporting. The Challenger has been out in the open wandering around the middle of the map for quite a long time. I'm quite surprised he's still alive, actually. He's going to go take a look there, and he finds the Panther M10. You see that you react to that immediately. I think that's the right answer. That's part of the benefit of the mobility of a scout like that. And end game, when you get down to not very many tanks on the map, the more you can bring guns to bear on anything that's lit and quickly take it down, the better off you're going to be for your team. Now, that goes without saying. It's a good tactic for the entire game, but really late game like this, if you can keep your guns together relatively like you've got, and you start working on guys trying to poke up in different spots, that can really help out your team. Now down goes your spotter, so I think you realize you've got to be that guy now coming in. This is a little bit dangerous because there's quite a few tanks still in the game, but once you tuck up under this ridge right here, you're going to be relatively safe, minus guys sniping your turret as you pop up or the artillery hitting you. And now it's time to power slide again. There we go. That's very helpful. We take down the M10 up to 3,800 spotting, and you know that Sum is there, so we're just popping up our turret just a little bit, see if we can find him. Now one option here is to stay unlit for a bit and see if you can't creep into those bushes right there. You would have to make sure you were unlit, and when you turned around, I don't think you were quite unlit, and then you brought your turret back up above the ridge, so it's kind of hard, but hey, guess what? Turns out you were. And you can do that a couple times to figure out, all right, what is the limits of where I can get lit, and then you might be able to actually, once you go unlit like this, sneak into those bushes up there, or just poke your nose into them a little bit, and then just start lighting them without moving. A couple dangers there. Number one is somebody gets just the right angle and sees you anyway. Or number two, they figure that's where you are, they blind shot in there and take you out, because that RHM is definitely a problem for you right now. So up to 5,200 spotting. Nice job on that. The Sum is still there, and the RHM. We got an E25 unaccounted for, and there's an artillery. I'll tell you one thing that the power slides do for you with artillery is it can throw off their shots. But if he's watching you for any length of time, he may understand that's what you're doing if that's what you do every time. Sum is just sticking his turret up over there. He's really asking for it here. Taking shots from every direction. And with the Sturv, well, the Sturv actually was up higher. He's actually moved down into the bottom there. And down goes the Suma. And with you in the game, they don't have a scout. Their E25 hasn't shown up. This is definitely advantage your team at this point. Having accounted for yourself 6,600 hit points of the enemy team. Taking a look, looking for that RHM. You don't want to get blapped by him if you can avoid it. Power slide. Well, that's good news. The E25 shows himself. He's not really going to have a good time against the Chrysler. As long as the Chrysler can keep him lit, in which case he can't quite. I like this move right here. Let's talk about this for just a second, and hopefully you were thinking the same thing I was thinking. The Chrysler is probably being looked at by the RHM. The Chrysler's been lit. The RHM is now possibly busy dealing with the Chrysler. This is one of those situations where you take advantage of a possible SA problem with the guy that you've been looking for, and we're going to come around here. You see, one thing you should have noticed as soon as you came around there, when you lit him, the highlight of his gun, his gun was pointed that way. And I think if you'd have just come around full speed around this corner, you might have caught him out. He ends up turning his turret in time right there because you slowed down, and then he's actually going to get you. And that's unfortunate, but down goes the RHM anyway, and then it's just clean up on L2 for the artillery. But nice job, man. We got 5,400 spotting, 1,200 damage done for later. Alright guys, hope you like what you saw. A lot of good things that you did there later, just kind of some small things to think about. Be interesting if you see this replay to go ahead and put some responses down on the response there, and any of the things I said on what you were thinking, if you were thinking something different, or if that's what you were thinking, it would be interesting for everybody to hear what you had to say about it. But as always, that's all I got, and we will see you.